All right, welcome back everybody to week number 5, Positive Message with Mr. Souza and Mrs. Richardson. We're excited to be here with you for what's going to be our final kind of positive message and our send off to you in the summer. And we appreciate you taking the time to tune into these. And hopefully you've been grabbing a few things from each of these that you can execute in your life and hopefully find some more positivity and energy and some things that are just going to help you kind of get through the situation we're going through and get you through a great summer. And hopefully, Mrs. Richardson, fingers crossed, next September,
we'll see you in person.
Yep. So this week's positive message is going to center around self-awareness and social awareness, and tied in with social awareness is going to be empathy. So I'm going to tackle self-awareness first, and then Mrs. Richardson will be bringing some ideas to you on social awareness and empathy. First, wanted to just kind of talk about self-awareness. We probably have an understanding of what it is, but I like to get a definition of it. So this is one that I found that I thought was very workable. Self-awareness is just a conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. So that definition is kind of packed with a lot of things. Character is your mental and moral qualities. Feelings are obviously your emotional state, and that's something that we talk about in health during the mental health unit. Your motives are your reasons for doing something, and sometimes those motives, people can see them, you can see them, or sometimes they're hidden or not as obvious. And then the last part of that quote, or the definition, is desires. Strong feeling of wanting to have something or wishing something that would happen. So all of those pieces play into being more self-aware. And I think in this world where we are externally driven, I think oftentimes we forget to take a look back at ourselves sometimes, because we do want to do things for other people. We want to impress other people. We want to look good on the outside and doing certain things, and we become motivated by that. But I think we always have to remember the different motivations that lie within us as well. So I wanted to take a look at some examples of self-awareness and then talk about some exercises to become more self-aware. So examples of just being self-aware, one of them is even just being aware of your appearance, how you look, how you dress, how you portray yourself appearance-wise. Another awareness of all the actions that you take, your daily actions. Another one is your why. And I think that that's something that we've discussed on one of our positive messages, understanding the why behind everything you do. Self-awareness centers around knowing your fears, especially your extreme fears, things that really, really, you want to avoid as much as possible. Your beliefs, any inner conflicts that you might have, and others' perceptions of you as well. How you see others seeing you, those all tie into examples of self-awareness. So as I was kind of looking into this topic and trying to understand it more, obviously I have an idea of what self-awareness is, but I kind of wanted to look and find some other things. So I decided to figure out practical ways or exercises that you can do to become more self-aware. And I found a bunch. There's so many out there. There's so many resources, but I kind of just broke it down to the 5 that I thought were maybe the easiest for me and other adults and students to do as well. The first one was called the 3 whys, and I thought this was very interesting. And it's the 3 whys to making a decision. So the decision-making model is something we talk about in health class, and oftentimes your decisions can be long and drawn out, or sometimes you have to make a decision that's quick on the spot. And we use this framework to make a decision in a lot of different ways, but this is just a simple way to break down that even further. And it just says the 3 whys. Ask yourself why. Follow that with another why, and follow that with a third why. And my 2-year-old right now is really, really good at asking why about everything. He's in the why phase of his growing up. So he's always asking me, why? And obviously you get to a point where, you hopefully don't say that because I said so, because that's what your parents told you, but I've been guilty of it. But if you're asking this to yourself and you come up with 3 good reasons of why you're making that decision, you'll have more confidence and clarity into making that decision. If you can't come up with 3 good reasons, then maybe that's not the best decision for you to make. Number 2 is holding yourself accountable for your flaws. And basically that's turning the mirror on yourself. And we're not talking about physical imperfections or things that you see on yourself that you wish you could change. It's more internal flaws that you see on yourself. And we've heard that term of, look yourself in the mirror, right? Sometimes people will say that to you. You got to look yourself in the mirror on this decision and be okay with it. You got to look yourself in the mirror and be happy with yourself before you go to bed and such. And as I mentioned, not physically, but internally. And make sure that you're acknowledging your mistakes instead of making excuses. And we're going to make mistakes. It's part of human nature, and being able to understand and hold yourself accountable to those and not relying on others to hold yourself accountable makes you more self-aware. I like this one a lot. Monitor self-talk. All of your achievements are not luck. So a lot of people, when they achieve something, they say, oh, I got lucky, or, right place at the right time. You have to understand that the things that you achieve, you're actively doing a lot of those things. Sure, there's some luck, good luck and bad luck, but you can't just always look at the things that you achieve and just say, oh, I got lucky, or, it just kind of came to me. So give yourself more credit for those. And then all of your failures aren't crucifiable failures. When people fail or they fall or they face adversity, they really get down on themselves and they scrutinize themselves. And you can't do that. You got to have that balance. And you're allowed to be tough on yourself, but you definitely need to balance that with some self-compassion. And oftentimes, who are our own worst critics? It's ourselves, right? We're usually more highly critical of ourselves than anybody else because we know ourselves the best. So make sure that you have that balance.
And those are growth opportunities too. So if you learn from those things, it's so, to get the most positive out of it, you can look back at a failure and say, okay, what did I learn? And use that as something to grow from. And then it's a positive.
Absolutely. And I like this. I like the idea.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Jump in whenever. I love the idea of self-talk, because oftentimes when our mind starts spinning, we start thinking and thinking and thinking, and our mind can take us down some negative pathways. But if you're actively talking to yourself, you have way more control over what you're saying. And I think that we might have talked about that in a positive message, or I might have talked about it in a Friday video or a trampoline video, but that's one that is a go-to for me, talking to yourself instead of listening to yourself. And I always think about it like the marathon runner, somebody that's running 26 miles, if they just think to themselves the whole time, they're not going to make it. They're going to fail, because they're going to say, this is long, I'm tired. They're talking to themselves saying, hey, you got this. That's another mile down. You've trained for this. So that's kind of what I equate the self-talk and the thinking to. Number 4, seek constructive feedback. You got to find mentors. You have to find trusted people who understand you, so they can tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And that is a tough one, because we often are afraid of any feedback. We just look at it as negative. You have to understand that there's negative feedback, but there's also constructive feedback. And it is okay to get constructive feedback, because we are not perfect. And if we truly want to be better, we need to seek ways to do so. And it doesn't always come from us. One of the reasons that we as teachers get observed every year is because we want another set of eyes, and we have to have another set of eyes of telling us how we're doing in our practice. Same thing with coaching. We have end of the season feedback meetings with our athletic department to see how we're doing. So seeking out those mentors and trusted individuals. I'm not saying just go out and get feedback from anybody, but somebody that knows you, that's going to give you really what you need to hear. And then when you take that in, understand it's not coming from a bad place. It's coming from help. And then the last one is a great one. Practice self-evaluation and reflection. Journal or be intentional and have intentional conversations with yourself every single day. What did you do well, and how can I improve? And those are things that you should be asking yourself every single day. It might be right before you go to bed, right before the moment that you hit your pillow. Oh, sorry, the family just rolled in from a little parade. So, I think I mentioned that 2 weeks ago on my Fist Bump Friday video. There's nobody that you should be comparing yourself to except the person that you were yesterday. And that's the toughest thing to do in our society nowadays, because we have a bar that is set by social media, by people, by friends and family that were like, I have to get there, I have to get there, I have to get there. No, you are walking your own path, you're living your own life, and you have to be comfortable with what you're doing. Sometimes you go to bed and you say, I was not a better version of myself today than I was yesterday. I've been there often. And the best thing is brand new day tomorrow that you can just work on that, and small marginal 1% incremental improvements. And that's really the only comparison that any of us should ever have. And that's a tough one to do. So those are just like 3 basic exercises or action plans that you can take to become more self-aware.
Those are awesome. So those are such great reminders for even adults, like everyone. You give me this kind of goosebumps on some of them because it's so hard to remember a lot of those things and really easy to forget. So yeah, a lot of those are just really good reminders. We can be like our worst own critics, but try to be graceful with yourself as well. So as we move into social awareness, it's very kind of similar, but looking not towards ourselves, but thinking about our thoughts regarding others. So like a definition of social awareness would be like the ability to take perspective and empathize with others, including those from diverse backgrounds and cultures, the ability to understand social and ethical norms for behavior, and to recognize family, school, and community resources and supports that might be able to aid you in your daily life. So there's 4 main pieces that fall under social awareness. And I'm going to kind of take one at a time. So the first one is perspective taking. So thinking of others. So perspective taking of others could include thinking of how others might feel in a given situation. So if you see somebody struggling, before jumping to a conclusion, think about how would I feel? Like if you saw some interaction occur between 2 people and you obviously can read some body language and you're like, wow, how would that really make me feel? But it takes really intentional work, like because you can just kind of think about it on the surface, but really put yourself into their shoes. Like, how would I really feel? But this leads us kind of to the second component. This is the empathy part. So, and this word empathy is really what led Mr. Sousa and I to these 2 components of social emotional learning, because I don't know if you guys watch the town hall meetings every Wednesday, but last Wednesday, Dr. Terranova had several Victor alumni on, and this word kept coming up: empathy, empathy, empathy. So I was like, wow, it just kind of stuck with me. So we kind of started thinking about how we can talk to you guys about it. And this piece of social awareness is kind of the crutch to all of it, I think, in terms of it basically, so empathy, the ability to put yourself in the shoes of another person and truly take their perspective. So there's that perspective word again. So it kind of takes that first aspect of social awareness, the perspective taking, and it takes you to a deeper level of it. So really putting yourself in their shoes. And so putting yourself into one of those people's shoes in that interaction you may have just seen, and really truly in your soul thinking about, how would that have made me feel? What would I be thinking right now after that interaction? So it takes us deeper into perspective taking. The third aspect, and I mean, going back to empathy for a second. So, and it could be something you see, it could be something, thinking about others in another country, something that might be terribly going on there. It could be anything, it doesn't have to just be like something you witness and then, oh, how would that make me feel? Just generally speaking, putting yourself into somebody else's shoes.
And I think, just to jump in for a second, Viv, the education piece is huge. Like, one of the reasons we do what we do every day is to teach our subjects, but to further educate people about different things that are going on in the world. Because if you haven't walked in somebody else's shoes, it's tough sometimes to have that empathy. Oftentimes your default is, oh, I just feel sorry. You have that sympathy. I feel bad.
Right.
So if I haven't been in somebody's place before, then I need to educate myself to understand what they're going through, so I can actually have a little bit of that feeling of empathy. And I'm obviously not going to fully know what's going on in their world, but I'm going to have a better understanding of what they're going through. And I think that's one of the big things that's going on in our world across our country right now, as far as
Absolutely.
what's being protested and all of this is, it's just further educating ourselves about the things that are going on in other people's lives.
Yeah, and so, or have been going on for years, and after so many years of going through or having to deal with something, how would I feel, now? Like, how much level of frustration would have built up, or whatever that feeling might be.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so it's those experiences. It could be experiences, or different situations, whatever. It could be living conditions, anything like that, where it's a matter of, I'm going to get into appreciating differences in a second, but like, yeah, it's so important. It's so important to really, not on that surface, but I like how you phrased that in terms of um, sympathy versus the empathy part, which is a huge difference. The third piece of social awareness is appreciating diversity. So what's the number one thing everyone thinks of? Racial, right? But there's so many different types of diversity that we could come across, right? So racial, obviously, that's the big one right now, well, always, but it's usually the first thing everybody thinks of. But there's religious diversity, there's even like personalities, who you are, and people who are different than you. People might dress different than you or have different interests. That's another one that I was thinking of, diversity of interests. So you might be an athlete, someone else their thing might be acting in a play. So, talk to those people. You just never know what you're going to learn from people that have different interests in you. Age diversity, gender diversity, socioeconomic diversity. So you might come across someone that lives in the city of Rochester or somewhere more urban than we're used to in Victor. What can you learn from those people? And then, so interest and ability. So just because someone has to be in a wheelchair doesn't mean that that's someone you can't learn from. So there's so many different kinds of diversity that we can be appreciating. So I wanted to kind of give a list to kind of remind you that there's so many out there. So if you see someone that's different than you, so diversity, whatever kind of diversity it is, we often get like, oh, I don't know what the right thing is to say, or we get afraid, or we get nervous about the differences. And I'm telling you, it will free you so much if you, instead of taking that perspective, seek to learn from them, be curious about their differences. And I bet you more often than not, if you ask a question, you're not going to be offended. It will be more, oh, they're probably going to be relieved that you want to learn from them or are interested in learning about them. So we can learn so much from the perspective of others, especially those who've had different experiences than us. That's kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier in terms of, sympathy versus empathy. So, one of the alumni on the last town hall was talking about, I think Dr. T asked, the question he asked was, what's your advice to our seniors that are going off to college? And many of them talked about how when you get to college, you're going to experience a lot more diversity. And so talk to everyone. So I can't remember which alumni, but a few people kind of added on to what he was saying. He's like, yeah, you just never know. You're going to meet so many different people. Talk to everyone. You just never know who you're going to meet and how interesting their lives are, and so much that you can learn from them based on their experiences to try and give you more of that world perspective. And then you could find it a little bit easier to have that empathy and to be able to connect with others on a deeper level. So I thought that was really neat. The alumni just said so many really, really, some really introspective things, which is really great to hear. The last part of social awareness is respect for others. So that can include recognizing emotions, body language, and thinking about how others fit into the bigger picture. So questions you can ask Like if you see someone and you silently are observing their body language, you might be like, oh, I wonder what he is thinking. Or again, how would I feel? Or, sometimes we see someone walk in to somewhere and they just have like this really not a happy face on, or their like body language is closed off and their, arms are crossed. And often we jump to conclusions and we're like, wow, what's wrong with that person? What's their problem, right? You can try to take the opposite and think about, oh, hey, are you okay? Is there someone I can get to help you, or can I help you, or did you need to talk to somebody? Often, sometimes we see, or even if we watch people interact with others, or if they are interacting with us and they're not the most pleasant, we often get defensive immediately instead of take a step back and be like, hey, are you okay? Are you, can I help you with anything? Like you seem like you're having a rough time. So try not to, the key is to try not to jump to conclusions and try not to dismiss others' feelings. So it's just like that respect for others in terms of just acknowledging what they might be feeling as opposed to dismissing it. So, so these are just two. So these are two. Social self-awareness and social awareness are two of several aspects or competencies that fall under the social emotional learning. And imagine if we were just to practice these two that we touched on here today. Imagine the impact that it would have on the people in our society. So, I mean, and it spreads, right? So if you guys watch this and you learn something from this, share that. You see someone jumping to a conclusion, or being kind of afraid of something differences in somebody else, and what, we should ask them about that, or whatever it might be, but just try and spread it. Like, it takes one, and then exponentially it can make a huge difference in society. So I would love to explore, like, it's something I wanted to do with Wellness Club before we had to all be home, is to talk about all the different competencies of social emotional learning. So I would, if you guys are interested, and I would love to continue to team up with Mr. Sousa as we return to school. If that's something you guys are interested in, please feel free to reach out. But they're definitely valuable skills, and they all tie kind of into one another. So if we were to tackle the other competencies, I think you would see the fuller piece of the puzzle. So that's pretty much it from my end.
Awesome. Well, I mean, like you said, two great topics that go hand in hand: being aware of yourself and being aware of others. And, those are things that are continual works in progress for us as adults, for teenagers, for everybody. But it's good to get it in the forefront and, start thinking about those things. And hopefully we gave some good examples of how we can get a little bit better at each of those. So thanks for that. This is, as Mrs. Richardson and I have said often, this has been one of our most fun things we do each week, just trying to pour positivity into our school as much as we possibly can. And we appreciate those that have tuned in. We are going to be signing off for the summer, but if you ever have any questions or need help or support, our emails are going to be live throughout the summer, and we might not be as attentive to them as we are during the school year, but we will get back to you and at some point. I guess one final thing that I just want to show, I was drawing it while you were talking here, was this image that I saw, and I have it on my phone, but I just decided to draw it since I wasn't going to share my screen. It says your life, and your life is huge, right? Your life is huge. And then there's this little dot, and it's this moment. It's this pandemic that we're living through. It's maybe not being able to build your favorite toy right now because he's struggling putting the blocks together. But it's such a small blip on the total grand scheme of your life that's what it's all about. You're going to get through these little moments that are challenging because you have so much more to accomplish and to get after. So I guess that's kind of my little piece of advice heading into the summer. Any final words from you, Mrs. Richardson?
I'm just going to say I miss everybody. I can't wait to see everybody again. And for our seniors, we're really going to miss you. I don't know if this is backwards or not,
Nope, that's
but
correct.
seniors, good luck. Congratulations. We'll see you around, I'm sure, at some of the events. But we stand with you and we wish you all the best as you venture out. And we definitely need updates, so don't be a stranger,
Yep.
even after you graduate.
Everybody that's graduating in the class of 2020 means the world to us, and everyone kind of graduating like this across the globe or across the world, I guess we should say, because this has been a global pandemic, whether it's high school or college. This is going to be a different breed of people that are just going to do some great things in our country. So I know that they're going to find the good in it. Thanks so much for letting us do this.
Really.
We hope you all
Thank
have
you,
a
guys.
great summer and have a great rest of your kind of last week. Bye, everybody.
Adios.